a great job.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mind Your Business Show. I am your host, Milt Walker, joined today with Tony Calloway, the Private Money Godfather. How are you today, sir?
Maestro, it is another beautiful Saturday morning here in Columbus, Georgia. And I want to thank all of our viewers for making the Mind Your Business Show an important part of your Saturday and an important part of your life. We have an awesome show today because we are going to profile, focus on, shower with attention, love, and affection, none other than the awesome Maestro Milt Walker himself. Give the young brother a round of applause, because we're going to be talking about technology this morning, and nobody does technology better than Silver Lining Consulting LLC. But now, Maestro, before we get into this, I got to take a pause for the cause, as they say, and I want to express my appreciation, ladies and gentlemen. Without fail, every Saturday morning for, as my math tells me, 64 consecutive weeks, we have come to you with the Mind Your Business Show live. And this young man has not missed a beat. He's been here, been on time. Y'all just don't know behind the scenes. We have guests coming on that they don't know how to turn on the computer. All kind of issues. And somehow he has always worked it out. I mean, you just don't find partners who are as reliable, dependable, and as professional as the Maestro. And I just want to say,
think uh, I think his computer may be waiting to come back a little bit. So I really
I
appreciate that,
appreciate you,
Tony.
brother. Love you.
I
All
appreciate
right.
that.
I guess we lost connection and we're back.
Yeah, yeah.
Appreciate you
We
too,
lost you
man.
for a second there, but you came back. I
All right.
appreciate you so
Well, I did
much.
exactly what
Thank
we're
you.
talking about.
Right. I need to do a house visit. That's what it,
I hope
that's what
all
I
y'all
mean.
got that. But from the standpoint, but yeah. Well, hey, everybody. The topic today is, and again, I usually we banter back and forth, but I'm sure we'll do plenty of that during the course of the day. But I want to give Milt full reign today, because as I've learned in my own business experience here with the Private Money Syndicate, if you don't have your technology right, the sad fact is most people don't realize what it's costing them. And unfortunately, it's human nature. But unfortunately, most people think, all right, here's what it's going to cost me to be able to do things. We'll see, the Private Money Syndicate can solve all of that. Money is no object. What you have to do is have a dream, and then you have to, as they say, build a ladder unto the dream. And so the technology side of most small businesses is a very weak area, and we're going to help you to solve that today, because we have a world renowned. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here. I'm just telling you straight up. I only deal with A-list vendors and stuff. But Maestro, again, we're going to focus on small business and startup technology essentials, but so that everybody understand how these resources of your experience, knowledge, and training are available to help them.
Okay. Yeah, definitely, and I appreciate that so much, Tony. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I've learned so much from your insight and your experience through uh, so many different areas. Because as a financier, you work with people from all types of verticals, all types of areas of business, and your expertise is astounding, and it's also very, very, very useful for someone like myself, a young entrepreneur out here that's building his business. And with that, I think it's a mutually beneficial thing, and that's something that I pride myself in. That's why I started calling my company Silver Lining Consulting LLC, because I wanted to make the point that but what we're doing is we're solving problems. So there's the cloud mentality where, and it's a you know, there's a little bit of pun in this name, but there's a cloud mentality where, you know, people see the problems and they don't really see the solutions, right? What my philosophy is,
Right.
there's always a silver lining. And a friend of mine actually called me Mr. Silver Lining one time, and that kind of sparked my mind on that. And from that, I came and I said, well, you know what? I'm going to be a silver lining consulting company where I'm always going to find that silver lining in my client's problem. So when they come to me with a problem, I'm
Right.
going to find a solution for them. So that was always my goal. That's always been, you know, my aim, and that's what I shoot for. And so, you know, to your point, the first thing that I like to focus on is making sure that I got a great understanding of what my customer is looking to do, what my client is looking to do.
Mhm.
So, you know, it may be a conversation, it may be several, where we're talking about, you know, their plans and what their dreams and their visions are for their business. And then from that lens, I look into my IT hat and in my bag and pull out, you know, tools and things that can help them, you know, accomplish those dreams and those visions. And so, you know, to the point of your show and your great idea as to what we should offer our you know, our viewers this Saturday, you know, I definitely want to share some of those tools with people and some of that insight that I've learned from dealing with different clients and customers throughout different places. And just to give a little bit of background, you know, I've done a consultancy with the state of Georgia where I managed multiple projects across the entire state. You know, managed over 3,000 devices, and I was the
Wow.
sole IT administrator. So, you know, I had a team behind me, but I was the IT administrator. So therefore, I had to call the shots. I had to make the
Mhm.
decisions. I had to make sure that everything was being done to keep everything secure, keep the citizens of Georgia secure. So that was part of my, you know, and that's always my thought process. I'm always looking at it like, who am I serving and how can I make their lives better with technology? And so that was one of my biggest clients. Definitely, it doesn't get too much bigger than a state, other than I guess the federal government. But which by the way, everybody, if you're looking for federal contracts, you know, we got the hook up on those too. We can teach you how to get those.
Yeah,
So definitely
Renzi Richardson. Exactly.
go to the privatemoneysyndicate.com website and ask for a consultation, and we can hook you up with that. But you know, so that was one of the highlights of my career, to be in a position like that, to be so around so many great people in a prestigious position. And I was a trailblazer. The position was new, and they were looking for solutions. The director
Right.
actually said, you know, that he was going to start calling me a solutions architect, right? So again, these things are just something that kind of permeates through who I am and who I want to be and who I'm becoming, and as an entrepreneur, as a young man, and so that's what I focus on. Yeah.
That's great. Well, now, real quick, because again, you mentioned people have problems, and it's interesting. And I'll just give this context that you remember the old commercials, the Holiday Inn Express commercial where somebody have something going on, then somebody show up and solve the problem. They say, "Well, thanks, doctor." And they say, "Well, I'm not a doctor, but I did spend the night at Holiday Inn Express last night." Oh, those are corny. But my point is, you have real
Right.
credentials, though. Just kind of real quick, give them a list because this guy's the real deal. Just give a short list of, quick list. Not It's not a short list, but quickly go through so people know your background as far as the training and technical expertise that you have in your knowledge base.
Yeah, yeah, I will, and I'll start from the beginning, and you know, just give a brief overview. You know, I started off in construction. I started off in trade work, so I learned at an early age, and this was in the early 2000s. And so I learned at that time to take pride in my work, and so from that, you know, I was able to draw that insight, went from electrical construction to fire alarm systems and camera systems. those systems were actually intelligence systems. One of the first ones ever by a company that was funded by GE actually, and so that was the parent. And so it was very interesting because we went into places like Fort Benning, Robins Air Force Base doing contract work. The project manager that I was working with, he was retired Navy, and we were kind of like a dynamic duo. I was his Robin, he was Batman, I was his Robin, and I would, and that was kind of like my transition into technology. The company bought me a laptop. They bought the CAD, which is the computer aided drafting software, for us to manipulate the plans that we would get from the Army Corps of Engineers, so that we could lay our circuits on the plan so that we could submit those to them to be approved. And I was the CAD drawer. I was the drafter. I was the one who had to do that and was tasked to do that. And we would almost always uh, finish our projects a little bit early, or a lot early sometimes, and a lot of times we'd have to wait for other trades to kind of catch up with
Mhm.
us so that we can continue on with our work and stuff like that. So we were constantly looking and going, and it was kind of like an entrepreneurial experience because like I said, it was just me and him. And so as we would go from job to job, we had to get up, do what we had to do, and then and also I had experience with working remotely back then, before the whole pandemic, right before everybody was doing that. I was able to be anywhere, work on my computer, and make
Right.
the drawings, and submit them, virtually, and that, and that was a thing. And so I got experience with that early on, and from there, I went into the IT field. And in the IT field, and I went into it for myself. And so what I started doing was break fix, which is just, if a computer breaks, I fix it. Started very basic, and
Okay.
yeah, very basic,
Okay.
and kind of worked
So,
myself
so you
up
were
from
you were
there.
you were a computer mechanic, in other words.
Right, right, right. Yeah, and it's always good, and I encourage everybody to, if you're starting, if you're a startup and you're starting from the beginning, don't be afraid to do that. Like, it's fun in the sense that you get to learn all the intricacies from every level. It's really actually a benefit, and it benefits you so much later down the line when you have a clear understanding of what it looks like at the lowest level of whatever it is that you're doing, that you can talk to your customer and say,
Right.
oh, okay,
Mhm.
well, I know what this issue is, because I've been there and I've dealt with this before, but this is how we can keep you from having this issue. So
Mhm.
it's very beneficial in that way. Yeah.
Gotcha. And what about your Google certifications and all that, real quick, before
I was
we
getting into
acknowledge our
that. I was
guests?
getting into that. So,
Oh,
from there, well, I mean, I wanted to take a pause for the calls, but from there, yeah, that's what I started doing, intense, self-learning, and
mhm.
I was bootstrapping, I was funding myself, so I would pay for my own education, and so I would take the classes, I would do it as fast as I could, get the certifications, and I was knocking out maybe 5 or 6 certifications a year, at least. And I just kept going
Wow.
because I was very hungry for the knowledge. And of course, technology is an ever changing field, so you always have to keep yourself abreast of things. And as I got higher and higher and higher in my knowledge, and I started to understand and say, oh, you know what? People have a real need of someone who can actually translate all of this for them, because a lot of time this is a lot of work, and it's a lot of information, to have. And I get that, and I like to be that point of contact for people when it comes to that, because I love the look in people's eyes sometimes when I'm telling them about something that they didn't even know existed, and they're like, oh, you can do that?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, you can do that. It's so funny, and I love that
You,
look.
you seen that look in my eyes a lot.
I wasn't gonna say that, but yeah, no, but and believe it or not, I see
Well,
it a lot in my business, in my field. So and it's interesting. And I always tell people, I lived out in California. I went to several Google events and worked with Google on a couple of things, and from that experience, I've seen how far behind the curve the South is where I'm from, my home, and I used to always tell people, we're behind the curve, but that's not a bad thing. It just means that,
mhm.
there's a lot of opportunity. So one of my passions is also teaching, which is why I incorporate that a lot of times into what I'm doing, unless my customer says, you know what, Milt, just shut up and do it, because I don't even want to have to deal with that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just do that, but
Gotcha.
but yeah, so I like to encourage people to learn about it themselves, because I'm very big on honesty, truth, and I want people to understand that what I'm giving them great advice. I'm not just talking. I'm not just trying to make a quick buck. I'm really looking out for your best interest to the best of my knowledge. So that's
Awesome.
really
Awesome.
how I like to get into that. So
Well, I appreciate you sharing all that background. And so before we get into the meat of our conversation for this episode, let's see who's tuned in to watch and give any announcements and shout outs.
yeah. So we got Danita Gibson Lloyd, our last week's guest, one of our week's guests, joining us, saying good morning. Looking forward to the show. Alfreda Gibson is joining us. She says good morning as well.
Awesome.
Ryan Calloway is joining us again. Says good morning, gents.
Maybe roll it back.
Right, right. Edward Winton is joining us from the Private Money Syndicate. Good morning, sir. Vic Calloway is joining us. The whole fam's here. Good morning.
Hey,
Really
thank you,
enjoying
brother.
the show. Yep, yep. Shavonna
Awesome.
Hill is joining us. Says good morning, Mr. Calloway. And Bobby Jean Ford is joining us again. She says good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And Darnell, the guy we was talking about right before we came on, Darnell Collins is joining us. Says what's happening, my brothers? The finest cats on the planet. And Versandra is joining us. Says thanks for all you do, Milt. Thank you so much, Versandra. I appreciate you as well. It's so awesome
Awesome.
to have great people, to work with, let alone, to mentor you in different aspects, and I see that from, our private money syndicate, there's so many different things, and sometimes I'm just sitting there just listening, and it's so amazing to be surrounded by such, great people. Like, I'm just extremely humbled and grateful. So definitely.
We're thankful for you. All right, now let's give the folks what they came for. All right, now again, startup and small business essentials in
Right.
terms of the technology. So you've got an expert here. He's already giving you all the background credentials. I encourage you to take notes and ask questions because everybody's got a different business, everybody's in a different situation. But to kind of set up how I want to approach this, Milt, we've got the person who's about to start the startup, so they're in planning. And then we got the person who's already launched and they're in some phase of evolution. All right. And as he said, technology is always changing. So if you already have some technology or starting to get some technology, understanding how you evolve with that, but for the startup, let's start there. They need to plan that into their process. So just about every business has some core elements. So what are some of the things you would say would be essentials for someone to have as part of their planning to launch their business in regard to their technology?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And, there are a few key points that you always want to hit when you're building your IT infrastructure for your business. Because whenever you get in business, the idea is always to grow. Even if you want to grow it to the point where you want to sell it, you always want to grow. And so, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. Of course, you can get funding. Of course, reach out to the Private Money Syndicate. We can work with you on getting funding. Or if you're bootstrapping, if you're you know building it from your own capital, then you definitely want to make sure that you get the best bang for your buck. And so, with that being said, the first things you want to invest in is secure communications. In today's IT landscape, that is vital. It is vital. And there are a lot of nuances to that everybody, you're not going to know. You're just not going to know. If you're not in the IT field, you're not going to know about security and how to set up a mail server to make sure that your emails are coming in and they're not being spoofed and they're not being intercepted and all these things. There's a lot of things to consider when it comes to that, to make sure, because of course it ties into professional branding as well. And we all know those stories. Some people can do it, overnight, and they can get those quick bucks when it comes to stuff like that. But that's not the average. That's not what everybody has to go through. So, you definitely want to make sure that you invest into secure communications. And one of the things that I do as a consultant, I provide those services where, we set those up for you, set up all of the, your mail server, and actually, manage the back end of your domain and stuff like that, because that's all tied to it. You get yourself a domain and it's linked to your mail server. So when that happens, like mine for instance, my email is at everycloudalways.com, which is my website, and it's also my business website, right? So it's all tied into the professionalism and also the secure communications of your business. And so that's definitely something that you want to invest in off the top.
And to that point of professional branding, it sends a message, and we all subconsciously respond to things. So if somebody's presenting their business and they have a gmail.com email address, now I have one for our administrative stuff. Our forward-facing client interaction is tcalloway@privatemoneysyndicate.com. People just respond. There's a little level of credibility that gets elevated if you do have that, and it gets maybe diminished if you don't. And to the extent that, as you said, it ties to your domain. And now think of the term domain. That is your realm, your dominion.
Your
That's
online real estate, right?
That digital real estate that you talk about all
That
the
you
time.
can build anything on, right?
That's correct. So, that's something that, and it's not expensive at all. But again, it goes back to the fact that most people are relatively ignorant. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just the noun that describes when you don't know. And so part of what we want to bring to you all's attention today is you don't know what that ignorance is costing you in some regards. And he talked about security, and think about what IT stands for: information technology. We often focus on the technology part, but understand that we live in an information rich world. And so your capacity to be able to not only provide, but also to receive and manage information is all a part of what Silver Lining Consulting LLC does. So if I can take this, have you take this question in the event there's some questions from the audience. All right, so I'm starting my business and I'm trying to plan what all I need to do. I mean, I think it'll be a smart idea. I'm prompting you guys to schedule a consultation to the Maestro, so he can talk to you about all these things, either to do at the beginning, phase 1, phase 2, however it gets mapped out, but also budgeting. Because again, if you're bootstrapping, you still need to know what stuff costs. Or if you come to the Private Money Syndicate, we can help you to get the capital you need so you can accelerate, pour gasoline on the process. So, what are some things like websites, or, just some of the tool type things that might be on the list of developmental elements somebody would need to put in their plan, Milt?
Yeah, and I just want to touch a little bit more on what we were talking about the domain as well,
Okay.
because of course you can expound a lot more, but I just want to add this quick thing, because not only when you invest in that, and to your point, when you have a Gmail, versus a business domain, email address. See, on top of that, you control the security of your domain. So with that being said, when you just have a Gmail, it's just what everybody else has. So if it's in that whole public sector domain when it comes to that, right? Even though it's Google's domain, so they keep it pretty secure. But they don't it's held to a the business domains are held to a different standard because they have to meet the government's security standards, the healthcare industry's security standards, the security contractor security standards, stuff like that, international security standards. They have to meet all of those security standards, but you need someone who knows how to implement those things. So that's where we come in. And okay, so what was your question again?
Okay, the list of I'm just things that come to my mind: website, CRM, potentially e-commerce, landing page. In other words, if you're like me, we can kind of reflect on our initial interactions where
Right.
I knew what I wanted to happen. I didn't know how to make it happen. So some people are at the other end of the spectrum where, they don't know what they don't know. And as you say, that look on people's face, like, you can do that. How do you go about their process of helping people to take these things that they know in terms of terms, like a CRM, client relationship management platform,
Right.
and how do I implement that? So, help somebody to understand why they need to talk to you, I guess is the point I'm trying to get to, so that you can help them to create that architecture, which is what we're talking about, that helps them to put their business in a functioning format in the information superhighway.
Yeah. So when it comes to, a CRM, it's very, very useful when you are managing your client's information, right? And you spoke about IT and what IT means. And that might seem kind of, outdated to some people, but the thing that a lot of people don't know about this is what the real power, the true power of a CRM is because it's an intelligent database. You can take insights from your client's information and your communication with your client. Say, for instance, you got emails that's going out about certain events that's happening. You with that CRM, you can see who's opening those emails. You can see you can see how many times they opened it, right? And if they've responded, right? So if they haven't responded, then you can send another one, right? So these are some of the key points that you can use and leverage whenever it is, say, for instance, you're doing a marketing campaign. A lot of times it's dealing with marketing. Um, you know, it's a very good tool because it keeps all of that information organized, and you can keep them in lists, and you can also tailor make those lists. You can make lists for specific customers. You may have customers who only like dogs. And so because you got a special on dogs, you're going to pick those customers that only like dogs and send those emails just to the customers who like dogs and not to the ones who like cats. And it saves you a lot of money, it saves you a lot of time, and it also gives your customer a more personal feel because you are catering to your customer for who they are and not
Right.
for, just sending it all out there and just whatever hits, which is a old sales strategy, but it's not necessarily necessary anymore. So,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where, some things you just got to get into a different mindset, but then in other ways, it's just not knowing that these things are out there. Also, when it comes to a CRM, you can automate a lot of those processes. When somebody goes to your website, and this is something that me and you talk about, Tony, somebody
Right.
goes to the website, they send in a contact information form, and then they automatically get email back of acknowledgement and for whatever it is they may have chosen to inquire about, and you can tailor make it to your business, but
Hmm.
having someone who can navigate all of that for you and to put that in perspective when it comes to your business, because some customers I don't recommend that for, and it's because their business is a different structure, right? But 9 times out of 10, and I'd say probably more like 8.5 times out of 10, a CRM is going to be the way to go because as your customer base increases,
Hmm.
it's gonna get, if you're having it in one little word file or you're having it in the spreadsheet, that's gonna get, tedious after a while, and you're probably just tired of looking at spreadsheets anyway. But but you can also get that information in a spreadsheet form, right? And again, there's so many nuances to a lot of this stuff that you really need somebody who can understand that for you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see if we got any questions from the audience before I ask my next one.
Yeah. We do. Ryan Calloway is asking, what do you recommend to try and get young people to pursue a career in either working for a company in your expertise or being their own boss? That's a great question as well, and it's one of the things that I actually do. I teach computer science skills, and one of the things I recommend to get people into wanting to do that is finding out what they want to do. See, one of the things that, a lot of times schools, they don't do. They don't really give you a diversity of things to think about and work on, and so that you find your niche, the thing that drives you. And I use technology to do this because technology isn't everything. It doesn't. You can be a barber and still use technology for your business. So it doesn't even matter, what you do. Technology is a bridge when it comes to that. It's a tool just like any other tool in your toolbox. To get you actually a more efficient result. And in the old world, tools were considered technology, right? So I mean, tools are technology. So it's in
Fire was considered technology when it was
right.
first.
And the one who has the best technology was the one who typically was able
Dominant.
to rise, to
Yeah.
dominate. So and that's still, it's a little bit different. There's a lot more collaboration and a lot less
Mm.
need for aggression and stuff like that. But when it's still the same principle. You want to
Mm.
be able to be as efficient and make the best use of your time and resources as possible, right?
Yeah. And you just gave an example of a very basic business, a barbershop. I mean, they've been around and there are plenty of them. But I was just sitting here pondering, okay, now what technology could a barbershop use? Of course, they could have a website. They could have a CRM where their customers come in, the customers could schedule appointments. Because I actually have an appointment with my barber because I don't like going and sitting and playing check. I go to get a haircut.
They can have
Uh,
an
yeah,
application for that, right? You can
that's
you can
right. Have
download the
an app.
application and scroll through, see because again,
See some of the cuts. Well, let me give a couple
yeah,
other things, and then I'll let you dig into it even more. And then find out in the CRM, like if they got kids and stuff. All right, so back to school time is coming up. So you could
precise.
send out email campaigns or text message campaigns. Hey, get your kids in for their haircuts, 10%, 20% off. You can have referral programs. I come bring a friend. All these different things are communications, which is a functionality, which you mentioned, application within technology, but it's got to be developed under an architecture, and I'm sure that 90% of barbershops hadn't thought about that. But now, what about you say the technology? And one who has the best technology tends to dominate. What about that barbershop who sees this show and calls him up and starts doing it? Something to think about. And so photographers like Ryan, my brother, just
Right,
mentioned
right.
how can you use the marketing to communicate all these different things inside of an architecture that he could help to create that could help to enhance your business in some viable ways. Now, this is kind of taken to the other side, like this man who has an existing business who might not have thought about implementing certain technologies and things. So I'll let you continue that.
Yeah, yeah, and it all ties into, whether you're trying to start a business or you're thinking about it or you're not sure. I mean, again, even if you do work for someone, so and I'll use my experience as an example. I've had other jobs, of course, that would supplement the things that I wanted to do for my business and stuff like that. And those were always for me, a stepping stone to what I was trying to become, or what I was becoming rather, and what I was, the vision that I had for my life. And so, even that, people, there's a freedom in doing it for yourself. And so, a lot of times people, it's funny because some of my friends, they ask, oh, hey, what are you doing today? I'm like, I'm just relaxing, going over some things that I have planned that I got to do, and it's a lot different type of conversation from someone who has a 9 to 5 and they have to go in at a certain time and work for a certain amount of hours and then come home, so but I've done that, and I've had to, do that as well as take classes and educate myself and build myself, and do all of those things, stay up all night, to finish some things, and to get ahead, or whatever the case may be. I've been there, so the key thing I would say to people who are starting up is, don't let your negative thought about not having something right now change your mind. Don't let that change your mind.
Yeah.
Push past that specifically, and go out and try different things, because what happens is, once you start getting into different things, whether it's jobs, I mean, you can go to different jobs and say, oh, you know what, I actually really like this, so you know what, I'm gonna start a business doing it because I love doing this, right? And then
Right.
now you're doing it for yourself and you love to do it, so it's going to show through your work. And that's how you want to look at that, you know
Yeah. Now, I guess another opportunity for me to engage people, and yes, I'm selling y'all on why you need to consult the Maestro and Silver Lining Consulting, and let the Private Money Syndicate. And you can go to privatemoneysyndicate.com. And two things I want you to do. I want you to go to the About Us page and see all of the people, the advisors who are here to help you to take your business idea. He is one of them. He's our chief technology officer here at the Private Money Syndicate. And so I want to take the conversation into, I want to tell you my story, okay, before and after. Now, I had a WordPress website. I called it my digital business card, because at least I could tell people I had a website, and it had, I think, 3-4 pages to it. Private Money Syndicate, no pretty graphics. I had another one, had a list of all the real estate, and another one had a list of all the business type lending. And then I had another page, I can't remember, I think it was, resources. And I found some links to some resources I put on there. And the fact of the matter is that one of the most valuable aspects of a website is for it to be searchable, for people to be able to find you and find your business. Now, reason, going back to the digital business card, the only way someone typically would know about my website is if I told them about it. And I handed them my business card, and I had the www.privatemoneysyndicate.com on there. But now that was what, 2.5 years ago. Now we're like coming up way high on page 1 of Google searches. Okay. And we're getting found by people all over the world. And he can tell you more about that. And now, granted, the business that we're in, I mean, kind of like that look on my face, we get an inquiry we actually had somebody from Iraq inquiring about finance. And so I called one of our funding sources, which actually my point of contact is going to be on the show next Saturday. And I said, can we do that? And she said, yeah. I'm like, that look on my face, like, really? That deal didn't work out. But, the fact of the matter is that if they can't find you, they can't do business with you. And we were joking, saying that, many of you who do have a website are buried on page 7, 8, 9 in the Google. I mean, they can't even find your tombstone. You're in an unmarked grave, okay, on the internet. And so it's important, because some of the techniques that he's implemented with the privatemoneysyndicate.com website are things that his knowledge can help provide, which are value to you. Now, from the standpoint, in addition to that, all the other functionalities, all my appointment scheduling through the website, we have it where you can click on and schedule appointments. You can call me. All these things are applications that could be done through the website, but that's all part of an architectural plan. So how do you want your clients to be able to communicate with you? What information do you want from them? What do you want to send out to them? All of that is just your dream. And I'm trying to seed the clouds of your dreams, kind of play on, silver lining consults.
Right, 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 right.
See,
Exactly, exactly.
seed the clouds with some silver dioxide, which is what they use. See, he didn't know that. See, I was a biology and science major in college. Yeah, they use silver dioxide to seed clouds to make it rain. So we're trying to make it rain money on you guys by having you to get in contact with the silver lining consulting maestro himself to get your technology right. So anyway, all I'm saying is you can find us now. Our website is robust. It's a great resource. We have all our videos from the show. I mean, all that stuff, man. And if your business is only on Facebook, nobody can find you unless they're on Facebook. And what is it that everybody sees on everything else in the world? If I want your undivided attention, which is the first thing in marketing, A is attention, 2 is interest, D is demonstrate value, A is call to action. I can control all that from getting you to my website. Getting them to your website is where the money is. As Grant Cardone says, if I don't know you, I can't flow you. You're talking about cash flow. So let Milt have his crack at showing you the light. Okay. And so anyway, I'm excited about what he's done for us, man. It is off the daggone hook. So you need to let this guy work for you the way he's worked for us. Don't worry about paying for it. He's worth every dollar you're going to pay him, but we'll help you to get the capital and you will get a return on your investment many times over. So that's my advertorial. My name is Tony Calloway, and I approve this message. All right, so I want to turn it back over to the maestro. Say what it is.
Right. And yeah, and again, and I was working with a client recently, and their website was the same way, and I love to explain these things because again, a lot of times we see the web and we see it working and we just know that it's working. So we don't really know the intricacies of how things are done behind the scenes. And so you look at these sites and you say, oh, okay, well, as long as I got a site out there, people are going to see me. And that's not accurate because what happens is, because there's so much information out there, it has to prioritize what they want to see over what you may want them to see, right? So it's always customer centric first, so that's how your website has to be developed. It has to be developed customer centric first. So when you're looking at it, you're saying, okay, what does my customer want to see when they come here? And then you kind of build, you take those building blocks and then you create and you design something that fits that particular business. Again, and each business is different. Of course, not only is that different from a technical point, but from a creative point as well, just personality, style. You have different people who are going to have different styles. They're going to have different colors, different, vibes as far as like the photos and all types of stuff. So, like mine, and I use mine as an example, everycloudalways.com. Mine is very easy on the eyes because there's a lot of information on there. So if somebody spends some time on my website, I want them to feel comfortable reading the information. So that was part of the psychological process of me designing my website, right? So, you and again, these are things that you don't necessarily have to go and look up and try to figure out yourself. You can hire somebody to do that for you, get it done in less time, a lot of times saving money by making money, right? So by not losing money. So because your website is up and going in a timely manner, you got these customers coming and it's professional and it's the search engine optimization is done to where, and now there's even another portion of that where, the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, right? It has to meet certain standards for people with disabilities. I have a couple of customers that I work with that do have disabilities. And working with them has really opened my eyes a lot to some of the deficiencies in the IT field just in general, and how, and I'm actually working on some projects to actually close that gap as well. But it's a very gratifying thing to be able to help someone, enjoy their lives by
Right.
making it easier, to do what everybody else takes for granted
Right.
sometimes,
Exactly.
so even in that, you want to have that thought about, how can I make this easier for the people who it's not so easy for, right? So, and so that's a part of the process as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which actually, let me make this point too, which actually raises you now in modern search engines. It raises you in the rankings because of that. You see?
And,
So,
and
yeah.
yeah, well, I'm sorry, but on that very point,
Please
if
interrupt because there's a lot. There's a lot.
oh,
Please
okay.
interrupt.
Well, yeah, I want us to, after I say this, let's give shout outs. We have any more viewers and take their questions. But I was just thinking, I said, okay, and I'm thinking about myself, I said, now, if we had our site where it was ADA enabled, and, for somebody who was, say, visually impaired, it would read audio to you, I guess, and
Right.
we would own the market. I mean, from the standpoint that, if somebody, I don't know how they would search for that specifically, but the fact of the matter is there are a lot of different ways that when you start realizing that these are all elements, and if you look at a periodic chart, all I think there are 182 elements now they discover. All of these are what make up the world. And my point is that technology is similar to that. And as creative as you can be, a thought. I mean, he just sparked a thought. And hopefully what we're talking about today is sparking thoughts. I mean, maybe your mind is like a sparkler now, but ultimately you design and then you create, and it's all his ability to click keys on a keyboard to make it happen. I mean, it's the ultimate in creation. It's a power. And so all I'm saying is you need to harness that, because if you don't, somebody else will.
Yeah.
And,
And I
and
tell
so
I
what are
tell
you
my
waiting for? You need to
I,
go to privatemoneysyndicate.com and schedule your consultation now. So
yeah.
you can talk to the maestro. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, yeah, and I tell my daughter, like, it's a superpower. Like, you become a superhero, where you can do things that other people can't do, but you use it to help them, right?
Right,
With
right.
great power comes great responsibility, right? As
Amen.
they say from the, Spider-Man comic,
Indeed.
we were big on Avengers, and so,
We
it's
are.
one of those things, and again, and even and going back to what, Ryan was asking, part of, you have to learn the basics. Every business owner should learn the basics, and you should, we do basic consultations where, you can just ask questions, and I can give you answers to those questions, and it can give you some direction. I had someone reach out to me not too long ago, just for that, to see which way they should go with their business. And,
Right,
I was able to help them formulate a strategy, and how they could implement, the existing technology, as well as, implement some new technology. And so, there's a lot of things that we can help you with. But the first step is contacting us, and getting that consultation, so that we can see where we can help you.
right.
But yeah, definitely. I call it being a wizard. So it's like magic. A lot of times, you just do it, and people are like, wow, how did you? Okay, now show me how you did that. And you show them, and they're like, okay, I don't even want to know anymore.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, dude,
So,
we had the other folks tune in. I know we've been enjoying sharing information, but if there's any other questions, because we got about 10 minutes or no less than 10 minutes, we'll make sure we address those.
yeah, well, no more questions, but
Okay.
we did have a couple people chime in. We got Horace Solomon joining us again.
Oh,
Good morning,
Perla in
brother.
the
How are you?
house.
Yep. Good morning. Good morning. Satish VM Satman is joining us again. He
Hey,
says, "Good
what's up,
morning,
guys?
y'all." Got that southern drawl coming out a little bit. Good morning, y'all.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. Now here's another thing, and again, mindful of, say we got about 5 minutes. There are these, I guess, where you can build your own website. I know one of the
Right.
things that you mentioned in a previous episode, when we did how the Private Money Syndicate works, you mentioned as a passing comment, but if you can spend a bit more time, that when it comes to search engine optimization or those kind of things, those cookie cutter fill in the blank websites don't support you as well in being found on the web. So talk to that, please.
So yeah, so what you're talking about is web design platforms, right? So you got these platforms out here that that you can use to build the template. So the reason why they don't help you is because of the same reason why a lot of people go to it. It's so easy to use. So many people are using the same template. So when the algorithm is what they call crawling the web, and it's reading all of these websites, and it's saying, okay, well, this one looks like this one looks like that one, this one looks like that one, that brings your rank down
Hmm.
because you look like something else. So it's not going to put you up there as high as something that's unique and has a lot of information and has more of what that person is looking for. In other words, you're going to be on par with them. So you all, and just imagine, because we're talking in millions and billions. We're not talking about just hundreds and thousands. So what
Hmm.
we're talking about now is you being on par with a million other websites means that you're on page 200, you know. And the only reason why you're on 200 is because you're actually in the same geographical area, you know. But there's 200 others that are actually better
That have the
suited,
same template as you
that are
do.
better suited for what they're looking for. You see what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
so these things, and again, it's a little bit of math, but again, these things are all part of the process. And see, but again, that comes from an understanding of the technology itself and knowing how does it work, how does it happen. And I always tell people this, like, technology is not bad. It's all about knowing how to use it. And if you don't know how to use it, then of course it can be used against you. Which
Yeah.
brings me into my next point, my last point that I wanted to bring up and talk about. And hopefully, a lot of people have stayed to listen to it until this point. But IT security. It is, as you see, and almost every day in the news, there's another case. I mean, Microsoft got hacked. I mean, all these people are getting hacked. So what does that tell you? Probably not a whole lot, other than that you should be afraid, right? But that's not technically what you should
Very
get from
afraid.
that. Right, right, right. That's not technically what that should tell you. What that should tell you is that I need somebody who can help me navigate this, that can help me protect the things that are most important to me, which is my business, my livelihood for my family, the things that I want to keep going. I want to pass down you're building a legacy. I'm all for it. I'm all with you. I got your back. Let us protect you, help protect you. Let us make sure that you have a plan in the event of disaster strikes. That's what it's all about. Because it's not as you can see, these companies getting hacked lets you know it's not a matter of can they. It's not a matter of if they can. It's a matter of when. You see?
Hmm.
So are you going to make yourself an easy target? Are you going to build all of that up just to have it all snatched away from you and held for ransom until you pay them your hard-earned money back to get it back, just to start from square one?
Exactly.
These are the things that people are not considering. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, I don't really see the value of it right now, so I'm not even going to pay attention to it right now. And that could be a fatal mistake. That could be a fatal mistake.
Yeah. And to the point that we were talking about life insurance, it's kind of like I was telling them
Yeah, yeah.
about selling life insurance.
Danita, yeah.
Nobody cares about it. It's just a bill until somebody dies. And to the extent
Hmm.
that on our
Yeah.
websites and on our devices here at Private Money Syndicate, we have Silver Lining Sultans, system security programs running because again we have people's information and things like that. And as a responsible business person,
Right.
I want to make sure that our assets, our information, our business, all those our assets are protected, and it's a form of insurance. So as we start winding down to close out, you guys understand this. Like I said, if you're playing, it doesn't matter. Like I said, cost in business is an investment to get a return on the investment.
Exactly.
If you're the barbershop, if you're the photographer, if you got to think, and I'll use this in terms of analytics. We can look at analytics. We can tell where viewers come from the website. So if I'm in Georgia or in Columbus, Georgia, that brand, if I want to launch a campaign, I can see the demographics. I can see the geographics. All that information is available because we have the right type of technology. And so all I'm saying is that you don't have to understand what's under the hood. All you need to know is I want to get somewhere. I want to drive. And so you come to someone who has the knowledge and expertise. And the Maestro, I don't think there's anybody better. But like I said, he's valuable, and we make him part of our team. We'll fund whatever it takes to make you that business superstar that you dream of. Bobby Jean Ford, who's a good friend of mine, launching her business. I'm gonna give you a plug now. This is a free promotion. If you need to get you some jewelry, get it from Bobby Jean Ford. But see, now does Bobby Jean have a website so you can order it? Don't know. All right, because see, she could be a multi-million-dollar business sitting right there in little old beautiful Roberta, Georgia. And if you ain't been to Roberta, you gotta go. But people have to be able to find you on the World Wide Web, because everybody all over the world wears jewelry. So why not?
Everybody's a customer. Yeah.
Why not?
You got customers all over the world. Definitely.
Why not? That's what you have to don't ask why, ask why not. Why not you, and why not now? And so with that, I want to turn it over to the Maestro to take us on home. But as I always say, if you're going to be in business and stay in business, you've got to mind your business. So with that, Maestro, thank you for an awesome show today. As always, brother, I want to let you take us on home.
It's always a pleasure, brother. I appreciate you so much for your support, your continued support, and always having my back. Danita Gibson Lloyd chimed in and said, thanks for the mention. Also, Bobby Jean Ford says, thanks, Tony, for that mention as well. And thank you all for supporting us. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you all, and we are here for you all. So please use us as a resource. Let us help you in whatever way that we can, even if it's getting you to the right person that can help you. Let us help you to fund your dreams, to build your dreams, and to protect your dreams. Okay. And as always, thank you all for joining us on this beautiful weekend, and we hope you enjoy it, and we'll see y'all on the next one. All right. Y'all take care.